Hi, I'm Dave Schatz with DHS Equipment. We can be found online at dhsequipment.com. Today I'm going to show you the procedure that I use to replace the bellows on a Wacker jumping jack. The procedure is the same on all the Wacker jumping jacks, anywhere from the old BS45Y, BS52Y, all the way up to the current version, BS60-2, BS60-4. The bellows is right here. This is the flexible joint between the upper and lower unit. It is a very common problem, very common repair. So we're going to go ahead and start with this machine. The engine has already been removed because we're going to do a video on an overhaul next on another video. So the engine is already off, and it also makes it a little bit easier for us to see what we're doing here today. Okay, so we're going to begin by removing the oil from the bottom unit right down here. This is how I do it. I grab some 2x4s. Clean the machine back. Get a suitable drain pan. And right in here, there's an 8mm socket head plug. This is what we're going to remove to drain that oil. We've got that right here. 8mm Allen wrench. We're going to go ahead and remove that plug. Once that plug is almost out, we're going to lean the machine back. We're going to pull the plug completely out. And let that lower end drain. It doesn't take a whole lot of oil, so it's not going to take very long. When the oil is done, or just about done, take your plug, put it back in the drain plug, in the drain area. Oil pan out of the way, and bring the machine back up. We'll wipe up whatever oil is on there. And we'll get that plug a little bit further in. Don't have to tighten it yet because we want to remove it again once we're down to here, just in case you want to flush it out with some fresh oil. Now that the oil is removed, get rid of our 2x4s. But we're going to need it again soon. Okay. Next thing we want to do is separate the upper half from the lower half. And that's these 4 bolts in the 4 corners. This particular machine is the BS700, and there's also 8mm socket head bolts. So we'll get in there and loosen up these bolts. Now that these bolts are loose, we'll go ahead and remove them. The upper and lower should be ready to separate. There's 2 different ways to do this. If you're in shop conditions where you've got a forklift or an engine hoist or some means to lift the machine, lift it from right here, that's the easiest way. This way we could raise it, get the weight off the bottom, we could remove the pin and separate them. A lot of guys don't have forklifts or motor lifts or hoists, so we're going to do this just like you're on a job site with no fancy tools or anything like that. So we're going to do it on the floor. First thing we need to do is lift the top, get the connecting rod up here all the way to the bottom so we could separate the upper and lower and expose the pin. All we've got to do is lift up. We've got to expose the pin. The pin is going to be right in here. So right now, if it's not exposed, that means the connecting rod is not all the way at the bottom. We've got to get the connecting rod at the bottom. Sometimes it just takes a little persuasion if you're not hanging it from a hoist. Okay. This is the pin right in here. That pin needs to be removed along with the plugs. Okay. Set this up nice and straight. This is where those 2x4s come in handy. Okay, the first one we're going to do, set it up right under here to support the lower half. Then we're going to take the other 2x4 and we're going to set it right under here to support the upper half. Okay. The reason we do this is because once we separate the upper and lower half from the center, both ends are going to collapse. It'll collapse right over your hands. So as long as we've got them supported, that's not going to happen. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is make sure there's enough room for that pin to come all the way out. We've got our hammer and a pin. Inside of this right here, there's a plug, a little plug like this, on the bottom and on the top. That little plug maintains the position of the pin and makes sure the pin doesn't hit your guide cylinder on the left and the right. Sometimes you get lucky and these plugs come right out. Other times they're not so lucky, you'll damage them in the process. So we're going to go ahead and drive this out now. Okay, the pin is out, the upper and lower, just about done. There's a plug in the way. Okay, now that that pin is out, the lower half and the upper half are separated. Now you can see right here, this is where the connecting rod goes right into here and receives that pin. So we don't need this section for right now. We're going to get this out of the way. And we're just going to work on this bottom unit. Okay, we'll finish taking this plug out. Here's the pin, here goes the plug. Okay. Okay, the next thing we've got to do is remove the bellows itself. Okay. You'll notice right on top here, there's an O-ring. We're going to remove that O-ring and we're going to replace it afterwards. A lot of the much older machines utilize the gasket. That goes way back. Okay, we're going to remove the clamps. On this particular machine, it's a 13mm bolt holding the clamps on. Okay, in most cases, you're changing the bellows for a reason. Your bellows is no good any longer. So it doesn't matter how you remove it. Some of the old ones are real brittle, it'll just fall apart in your hands. Other ones just have a crack or a puncture. So we're going to take the bellows off. You can take a razor knife and just slice right across the top here and right across the bottom there. And then this flange will pop right out. I've given this class about 4 or 5 times already on this bellows. I want to keep using it for as long as I can. So I don't want to damage it and I don't want to cut it. So I'm going to try to hold this down and hit this with my mallet and try to just break that seat between this top flange and the bellows. In most cases, it doesn't matter if you do it this way or not because you're trashing your bellows. I'm going to try to reuse mine. Okay? I'm going to raise this top flange, use the soft part of my mallet. Okay, until that seat is broken. I'm going to remove this. And now we're left with the bottom piece. Same thing, you could cut yours here and try to peel it back and pop it off, or in my case, I'm going to try to save it so I can reuse it. I'm going to lift up on the bellows and pop it up. Okay, the old bellows is off. We're ready to put the new bellows on. This is a good time to take a look inside of here. If you're nasty, dirty, you have a lot of garbage in there, this is the perfect time to clean it out. When you're done cleaning it out, there's that 8mm drain plug. Go ahead and remove it. This way, whatever you're doing in cleaning, that'll all come out the bottom end. When you're all done with that, put your plug back in. Get everything as clean and dry as you can. We are not going to put oil back in here just yet because we're going to lay it back down to reassemble it. If you had your engine hoist and was going to just drop it right down from the top, you could put your oil in now, but we're not going to do it that way. Okay, the next step is to actually install your bellows. Your new bellows is going to be a little bit tighter fit than this one, just because it's been on and off so many times. This is the easiest way to do it. This is the best way to do it. I've heard a lot of guys try different things to soften the material so it goes on easier. I've heard some guys use torches, some guys use heat guns. I've probably done about 70 of these over the years. I've never had to resort to that. The easiest, the best, the fastest way is what I'm going to show you now. Everything cleaned up, you've got your brand new bellows. You're going to take a very light coat of grease and just put it right along the edge of the bottom of the bellows. You don't need a ton of grease, just a little bit of grease goes a long way. So we're going to go ahead and put our bellows back. We're going to put it back as centered as possible, as level as possible, not crooked because it'll be harder to put on. We're going to go ahead and center it as best we can. And then same thing for right here. We're going to put a light coat of grease along the top edge. This is going to be nice and clean. We're going to drop this in and we're going to get it centered. We want to make sure it's not at a funny angle or anything like that. Once it's centered, this should go on in a snap. You're going to grab corner to corner. We're going to make sure our alignment is good. And with a sharp, fast snap down, we're going to force this piece down and it's supposed to snap the top and bottom into place. Okay? That's it. The bottom's in place, the top's in place. We're in good shape. You didn't have to get a heat gun, you didn't have to use a torch, you didn't have to use any of those things. So now we're in good shape. Our new bellows is on, and we're going to go ahead and put the clamps back on. We're not going to tighten the clamps right now because we're going to need to adjust the alignment of the machine afterwards, and this is how we do it with the clamps. Okay, finger tight is not moving, but it's not tight. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is put an O-ring back on. We sell a kit. We sell a kit that has 2 replacement plugs and an O-ring. Okay? Wacker recommends that you replace the O-ring and plugs every time you replace your bellows. We're going to go ahead and put our new O-ring on. Seat it down all the way to the bottom. And we're going to do something just a little bit differently than the standard procedure. And the standard procedure is with the machine upright, you've got access to both sides of the plugs. Because we're doing it on the floor, so we can do it easily with one man, no tools, we're not going to have access to this bottom, to the back end. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our first plug, and we're going to go ahead and set the first plug first. This way when we lay it down, it's already in place. So take your first little plastic plug end and set it in there. Okay, I like to recess it a little bit. If you recess it a little bit, it'll get forced into the correct place once we drive the pin in the plug from the back end. Once that final piece goes in and we put it a little bit past flush, that'll realign where this plug is supposed to be. Okay, so our back plug is in, our O-ring is in. It's time to connect the upper and lower unit again. We're going to go ahead and re-support it. And now we're going to bring our upper half closer. Okay. One thing I'm going to show you first, when we go to install our pin, if this connecting rod is inside, once we put our pin here, we're just tapping blind. If anything moves, we're going to be tapping forever until we find the alignment of this pin again. So what I like to do is put the pin in and go a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch past flush. You feel it with your finger. Once it's flush, give it a couple more taps. It's a little bit past 1/4. But if you take a look, that pin is protruding past this point. The reason we do this is once we put this connecting rod inside and rest this down in place, all we have to do is move it just a little bit and it'll fall right into place. There's no guessing as to where that little hole went. Okay? Okay. So we're going to try to put the connecting rod inside of here, and we should just be able to feel around, and when the pin hits that circle, it'll just pop right into place. That removes all the guesswork. Okay, it's in place. We'll tap it down a little further, but not tap it in all the way. What's going to happen is the pressure of the bellows, once we drop this pin past flush, the pressure of the bellows is going to slide over this piece right here. And if it slides over it, we're not going to be able to get our plug in very easily. So what I'll do is take my single 2x4, swing this out, put a 2x4 right there, and then rotate this to the side. And what it does is it'll squash the bellows down a little bit, and this way there's no pressure over here, and I can finish putting the pin in without worrying about this sliding up and covering it up. Okay, we're going to drive the pin in a little bit further. Leaving enough room for the new plug. Our second plug is going to go in right now. Okay, that plug is in. We're going to go just a little bit past flush. Okay, now that that's just past flush, if you run your finger down to the bottom plug, that's also now closer to flush, because by forcing it in from this side, it'll push the other side into the proper position. So our pin is in, our plugs are in, our O-ring is on. We no longer need this 2x4 here. We'll get it out of the way. We don't need this here anymore. We don't need this one anymore. And we're just about there. Straighten out the jumping jack. Okay, and we'll upright it. Okay, now all we've got to do, we're ready to have the bottom end meet the top end again. So we'll get 2 bolts to start. We'll catch them at the corners, and we'll try to bring this end up. Okay, We're not tightening these yet, we're just trying to align it and keep it from falling apart on us. Catch one corner. And we'll catch the other corner. Okay. Now that the corners are aligned, the machine's not going to topple over on us. We're going to take the next two bolts, and this is where you're going to Loctite them. I'm not Loctiting it because I'm going to take this apart a dozen more times for more classes. But this is where you would Loctite your bolts. We'll Loctite this one and start it. We'll Loctite this one and start it. Then we'll go ahead and we'll remove these two bolts, Loctite them, and reinstall them. Now we'll have all four bolts Loctited. And we'll go ahead and snug them up. Okay. Once the gap is closed, then you'll go ahead and torque them to the recommended spec. Every model has a different spec. So I'm not going to give you a spec on this one because somebody's going to try to use that spec on a different machine and it's not going to be correct. If you need to find out what your specifications are, you could always call us. We'll be happy to look it up and tell you what it is. Okay, so our four bolts are in, we're torqued and Loctited. This section of the job is done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to tighten the clamps and align the machine. You may see, or you may have seen in the past, a jumping jack that looks like this. I get this call all the time. My shoe is broken, something is broken, my handle is one side, my shoe is the other side. Nothing is broken. If this bellows wasn't here, this machine would be free to spin. There's nothing broken inside. The only problem is maybe a clamp was loose or maybe something hit the handle and it was just able to slide a little bit. So that's normal. And this is what we're going to do to get a proper alignment. To get a proper alignment, we're going to utilize the front of the shoe, so long as it's not damaged, and we're going to use the front of this frame. This has the rollers, so we're not going to use the damaged part of the roller, but we'll use the straightest part of the roller and the straightest part of the shoe. All you have to do, lay the machine down, make sure your shoe is flush at the bottom, make sure your handle is flat against the bottom on the ground, and that's it. Right now you've got the best alignment that you're going to get. This is the point where we're going to tighten up the clamps. These also have a torque spec in the Wacker manual. If you need a repair manual for a jack, a jumping jack, give us a call. We'd be happy to supply a manual and directions. Okay, that's good, that's tight. Now's a perfect chance to tighten up that oil drain plug. Okay, everything down here is done. We'll upright the machine. Okay, what's left? Oil level. Oil level is checked right here. There's a clear sight glass. Most of the time it's clear, if not, they're replaceable. Cost you about $11. The oil level should be halfway up your sight glass. Okay? Here's how to change the oil, or here's how to install the oil on this particular machine. On the older machines, there was a plug somewhere around here, and that was the way to fill the oil. On the VS 600, 700, 60, 70-2s, the oil drain, oil fill is right in here below the air filter. Remove our cover, remove our filter. And I'll show you right here. That plug right there, that plug has threads on the top. That's what accepts the top of this cover. That's what contains the filter cover. But when you remove it, this is also where you throw your oil. This is a 19mm plug. Remove the plug, and you'll see there's a little copper gasket. Make sure that gasket is in place when you go to put it all together, otherwise you may leak. Grab our oil in our funnel. Add about a half a quart. Give it a minute to get down there. Check your sight glass. When it's about halfway in your sight glass, go ahead and button this up. Remove your funnel. Add your plug back in. Start the machine and let it run while jumping. If you just let it idle, you're not going to accomplish anything. Let it jump for a couple of minutes, and then let it sit for 5 minutes. Then check your oil level in your sight glass again, and adjust as needed. Once you've got the proper level, snug up the plug. Put your air filter and air filter cover back on. That's it, you're done. You've just done a bellows. It probably took you about 30 to 35 minutes. Longer if you're in a shop and you've got the time to really take everything apart and really clean it well, make sure it's dry. It would still take you less than an hour to do this whole job. The engine doesn't add or remove any time because everything is still connected up front. You don't have to do anything with your engine to do this job. Again, our engine is off, so we can do an overhaul at another point. And it also made it easier to show you this job. So that's it. The bellows done. Check for leaks. You shouldn't have any. And that's about it. Again, my name is David with DHS Equipment. We can be found at dhsequipment.com. Please feel free to visit us and check out our future videos. Thanks very much.